Okay, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. Some of you, I think, dialing in from Asia. A warm welcome to this live webinar, which in format is a real innovation. So we're feeling our way into this. And the topic of discussion today is a step-by-step guide to monetizing your APIs. My name is Mark Newman. I'm Chief Analyst with TM Forum. And before introducing you to the three other panelists, I'm just going to talk you through how we're going to make this session work. So there are four of us on the line from TM Forum and Tory Harris Business Solutions. There are a number of operators that we reached out to and executives who are joining this call, who are participating in this live webinar. We are going to endeavor to make this a conversation as much as is possible, which means that that everyone is free to come in and comment, to ask questions as we're going through the slides. However, I have left some sections specifically for questions at the end. Before we carry on, I'm going to mute everybody because I'm hearing some background noise. Okay, so I've now muted everybody, so I'm trusting you're still hearing me. So as I was saying, people are free to step in and ask questions during, as we go through the slides, but also I've left some topics for discussion at the end of three specific sections. So I'm now going to introduce you to our panelists. Firstly, Joanne O'Brien. Joanne is BP Ecosystems and Labs at TM Forum. And Joanne, maybe you can just give us 30 seconds on your involvement at the TM Forum with APIs.
Thank you, Mark. My pleasure. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I kicked off the initiative to develop a series of APIs at TM Forum. It spun out of the ecosystem program initially. We were looking at automation, fundamentally at automation. We had traditional assets of ETOM and SID, and we're looking at how to enable our members to realize the value of TM Forum and its assets much faster, down to the era of minutes, whereas traditionally it was hours, and it was months and years. So that was where our API program came from. So I led that up until the autumn of last year, at which point I took over the ecosystem program, which is really about taking the assets of the forum and bringing them out well beyond the telco industry. And now we're working with a whole number of focused industry verticals, such as healthcare, manufacturing, automobile, and cities. And that's what I do today, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And next, I'd like to introduce you to Karthik, who's Head of Centre of Excellence at THBS, and Joffrey Chandy, who's Business Head of Unit at Tory Harris Business Solutions. And maybe I could ask Karthik or Joffrey, can you give us just a 1-minute background to Tory Harris Business Solutions and what you're doing in the field of APIs and ecosystem management?
Yeah, so can you all hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now. So everyone's unmuted now, yeah.
So just a quick introduction to Tory Harris. For those of you who haven't heard about Tory Harris, we are a global leader and specialist provider of integration solutions as a means to digital transformation and digital ecosystems. Tory Harris has over 20 years of experience in connecting systems, IoT things, and integration, microservices.
Could I just ask, someone has a lot of background noise, so could I ask the individual with background noise to mute themselves, please? Thank you. Sorry, Karthik, carry on.
No problem, yeah. So we have over 20 years of experience in connecting systems, things, and people through integration, API, and microservices. Some of the customers we work with are British Telecom, Telefonica, O2, Vodafone, and Schneider.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to, so thank you very much indeed, Karthik. I'm now going to mute everyone apart from Karthik. And so to give Karthik a chance just to go through his slides. So Karthik, over to you. I'm now going to be moving the slides onto the first of the section. So Karthik, if you can start walking us through
Sure, Mark.
our agenda.
Yes. So I'm going to cover three broad topics that are related to the theme of this webinar. What are API organizations doing today? How the leaders are different and how you can become a leader too. So the first topic, what are API-driven organizations doing today? We wanted to give you some examples of what customers are doing from our own experience and also what we see others are doing from our exposure to the industry. And then we have taken one step ahead and we wanted to show you how leaders are doing, what leaders are doing and how they are doing it differently. And we also show you how to progressively move from your current state to an advanced state in line with the leaders. Okay. Now going to the first topic, so may I request to switch this slide please. So what are API-driven organizations doing today? So this is one example that I wanted to talk from our own experience, and we are actually implementing this use case as we speak. So this is a use case where a mobile operator from Ireland, which is Hutchinson 3, they have partnered with all the toll agencies that collect tolls from the customers. And what the toll agencies are doing is they're offering a value-added service to their customers in partnership with 3. So they say that if you are a 3 customer, you have an extra convenience. Like if you just drive past our toll gate, your toll charges will automatically be charged to your mobile bill, and you need to just pay the bill once. So you don't have to wait and pay the bill. So it's seamlessly integrated with an RFID tag that's provided to all the customers. And the way this use case is implemented is a charging API is exposed on the API gateway. It's an outbound API. It's a partner-facing API. And every time when a car passes, the RFID receiver invokes the charging API, which in turn invokes the billing system. And automatically the customer profile is linked from the RFID tag and the bill amount is charged to the customer's account. So this is one example of exposing the charge to your mobile account use case. So imagine if you think of your partner ecosystem, you can imagine the different types of value-added services that can be made possible by exposing this API. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. The possibilities are huge when you think of exposing core capabilities from your internal system as APIs that partners could add more value on.
And Karthik, just before I move on, we often talk about direct operator billing or direct carrier billing, and this I guess it's kind of a flavor of that, isn't it? Really, you're paying through your bill for your toll charge, effectively.
Absolutely, Mark. That's correct.
And so, interestingly, do we have any insight into, from a customer perspective, are you given a choice as to whether you pay the bill via your mobile phone or via a credit card? Do we know how that actually manifests itself from a user perspective?
Yes, so that's basically an option provided to the user, and obviously here we're talking about an RFID tag. So the customers are given choices. Like it's like if you have an RFID tag, you have the choice to either configure a credit card as part of your profile account, or you have a freedom to choose the mobile operator of your choice to kind of charge again. So if you are already a customer with the mobile operator, it makes your life much easier. So you use your credentials, your identity with the mobile operator's leverage to do the charging.
Yeah. And I guess the interesting one there is that I guess an ideal scenario would have all of the Irish operators all exposing their charging API in the same way, so it can become available to the whole of the market. I guess that would be an ideal scenario, not necessarily for 3, but for the market as a whole, it would be.
Absolutely. I think if you have a pioneer, then I think all the operators would follow. So they don't want to be left out, and this is a trend we are seeing in every other market.
Okay, thanks. I shall move on to the next slide.
Sure. Yeah, so we wanted to give you a glimpse of what other operators are doing. So we've handpicked two examples, one from the mobile industry and one from the finance industry. So we have the developer portal from E. So a developer portal is a place where partners subscribe to all the APIs. They discover all the APIs. They identify what use cases are available for consumption. And it usually works both ways. So the mobile operator, they have an active effort to reach out to partners proactively, or what they do is they market the API initiative in such a way that the partners discover the operator and they discover the API program and they identify use cases. So it works both ways. And it's very important for every API program to factor in these two dimensions of increasing the reach. So that's the reason why there is a dedicated team for managing the developer portal. You have a product management function to identify the use cases and to manage the life cycle like any other business offering. So at this point of time, I would hand it over to my colleague Joffrey to give us a very quick glimpse of what we are doing in the developer portal.
Thank you, Karthik. Hello all. So for us, the engagement on the API implementation on E is specifically of great interest, because this whole journey of adopting API for strategy in E kind of started when E itself was going through a transformation where different brands came in. So there was a lot of IT consolidation that was happening. So the prime driver for the initiative when it started was to abstract the backend complexities and bring in an element of IT agility to help drive business goals when two telco entities came together. That was then progressively built on to have the second objective, which was to decrease time to market of anything that goes to the B2B market in terms of propositions. And then lastly, it was to get to a point of being able to create a partner ecosystem to exchange APIs, largely to kind of have new revenue channels created. Now, while this journey, while we went through this journey with EE for over the last few years, the interesting part is that their API strategy has progressively moved from a project funding mode to a product funding mode, where we are actually seeing business and IT coming together, working as one integral arm to drive the demand into the product roadmap. So what this is translated or enabled is that while many of the APIs originally started to be built for internal consumption, we've got to a point where every API is, irrespective of whether it's going to be in an internal consumer or an external consumer, it's built against the standard framework. So at this point in time, the ROI of this initiative is derived through 60% of APIs which are consumed internally to drive self-serve, but the remaining 40% has shown almost 75% of reuse across partners. So the ability of a higher reuse of a common framework that was built was a big point of success. There's a large measure of indirect and direct monetization that's implemented in this particular framework. Yeah. Over to you, Karthik.
Thanks, Jeff. Just to add to what Jeff said, Jeff explained it in the mobile context. So the same set of approaches exist in the financial industry as well. So some of the common use cases that we can think of in the financial sector are mostly transactional APIs. And transactional APIs can be used to expose the core payment capabilities to the partner network. Then all the reference data such as bank location, ATM location, all the reference data where any digital service partner could kind of leverage this data and provide a seamless experience. That's one. List of transactions and all the government regulations. Like in most markets, governments expect banks and other financial institutions to expose some of the data to kind of prevent fraud or in the interest of national security. So APIs are used as a means to kind of make this data securely available to the required parties.
So you guys.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, are you seeing more traction from the banking developer ecosystems or the telco developer ecosystems? Which is more popular?
I would say telco has a huge potential in terms of the opportunities than banks. But as of now, banks are kind of pressed by the regulators to expose the data. So statistically, it may appear that banks have more, reach in terms of the API use cases. but telcos are having the advantage, and we are seeing more and more telcos are opening up. Especially the network KPIs are becoming more popular and very good candidates as telcos are seeing threats from OTT players like Twilio, Plivo, and others. So that has been our observation.
I'd be curious what the opinions of others on the call would be with regards to is part of the success with the banking side of things is the regulator requirement to expose account data and things like that. But there's also been a very strong fintech industry for quite a few years, where there's a lot of venture companies and things like that which support startups. Do people feel that this is an area where the telco industry and the supporting innovation can thrive better if given that we are now getting to a point where telco is exposing services through APIs, that if we combine that with more innovation venture similar to the fintech industry, would that be something that would be helpful to the telco industry to reap new services and offerings based on the telco services exposed through APIs?
So Joanne, I'm actually going to, I've just unmuted, I'm going to mute everybody again now, there's background noise, so let's pick up on that when we come to the discussion slide in a couple of minutes' time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so my question back to Karthik and to Jofi, had we finished with that slide? I think we probably had. So let's move on to the next slide. So Karthik, I've just unmuted you.
Sure.
So you should feel free to carry on. Had we finished with that previous slide?
Yes, I have. Thanks. Yeah, so this slide shows a diagrammatical representation of how you progressively expand your internal IT and visualize them in the form of API candidates. And you expose the core capabilities as API. So any new application that an operator develops, or for that matter, any enterprise develops, the application architecture in terms of your SDLC, you always think in terms of API candidates. You don't think in terms of monolithic applications. And this is realized from two perspectives. Like it's like, first you think about the future, you think about your partner use cases and your internal use cases, how they can align, and then you expose. And progressively you build your partner ecosystem, right? So if you kind of go to the next step, it's an animated slide. If you go to the next step. Yeah, it shows how partners will progressively expand, and it kind of creates a kind of a network of partners where multiple partners consume the APIs. And as a strategy, it's very important to look at exposure of APIs as access control. So you have your internal capability, you expose APIs, your internal applications consume them, and your partners' applications consume them as well through the kind of same exposure layer. So the level of configuration is managed at an API management level that kind of provides a kind of a controlled access for partners, but it provides more liberal access to your internal applications.
Thank you. Okay,
yeah.
So that completes the first section. We're keeping things nice and succinct. So before I'm going to throw open the floor, I'd actually like to just throw a question back to Karthik and Jofi, which is, you mentioned before, I think, in the case of EE, that you had a perfect marriage there of IT and business. And the challenge that I see when I look at the solutions that you're providing and the API economy more broadly in telco, it seems that getting that alignment between the IT and I guess typically the enterprise line of business is pretty important. It can be pretty challenging. And so, I guess my question to you both is, where do you think we are at as an industry in terms of making the loop from looking at APIs from a pure IT perspective to being a business and IT perspective? Have we made that leap yet, or are we still waiting?
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. I definitely think that we are at a point where we have made that leap. While in telcos across the globe, APIs adoption of APIs till recently was largely an IT-driven initiative, but now largely over the last year and a half, we've actually started seeing a lot of adoption of both premium and freemium APIs, in the telco landscape. Telcos have also onboarded this idea that now what they build for their internal consumption can actually open up a channel for external monetization as well. That was, especially in this particular example in EE and BT now, the model evolved from being an IT-driven initiative, not necessarily an IT-driven initiative, but one of the core driving reasons was indirect monetization, and now the move from there to external monetization actually happened fairly quickly, and we are actually seeing a lot of interest in a lot of traffic in partner onboarding over the last few months. So definitely a leap, I would say.
And that sort of, I guess, leap, or that slow leap, is that happening because people in IT roles are reaching out to the business, or is it the business reaching into IT, or is it a bit of both?
I believe it's a bit of both, especially in our experience, specifically in this engagement. It's been a combination, because within the product function there's a top-down approach to kind of go API first. Within IT, there's an equal vested interest in terms of making sure if there are different lines of businesses, or if there are different elements in enterprise that are adopting API first strategy, then there is an element of standardization that happens across, so that there is so that as an organization you are able to establish views. So that vested interest brings in an element of joined up approach.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm now going to unmute everybody. So the way I'm going to proceed now is I've got some discussion topics. Karthik, Joffe, and Joanne and myself will be having a discussion on these areas. But we would love anyone else on the call to join us if they would like to. So if you would like to add something, ask a question, now is a very good time. So we have a lot of background noise, but no questions by the sound of things. So maybe we just pick up. This is Joanne, Joffe, and Karthik. And Joanne, you just touched on this before in terms of comparing banking with telecom, and I think you were sort of fishing for some guidance from other people on the call as to how advanced telecom is compared to other vertical sectors. I mean, so my question to all three of you is, which sectors are more advanced than others today in the use of APIs?
Could we maybe mute the person 4 down from the top?
It's a person 4 down from the top. Okay. Do we know that is the case?
It looks like it's there.
Okay. So I've done that. I think that's okay. Great. So I'm pretty sure the line is open for anybody who wants to join at this stage. Otherwise, I'm going to leave Karthik, Joffe, Joanne to comment. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. I mean, I think it's very, very interesting. And the evolution towards API-driven businesses is, it's well underway pretty much everywhere. However, some are definitely more advanced than others. And I was curious about if people thought that the things like the fintech industry having so much support and encouragement towards an ecosystem of innovators around an industry, whether that is also playing a role in helping to stimulate not just the APIs, but the use then of the APIs, or the generation of commercial services that sit over and above the APIs. As telco, we expect to see connectivity being sold more as value-added connectivity services in the future, and this is similar to other industries where where you expect to see more solution type selling. And I think there may be a trend here, and I was just curious from other people if they thought the investment in things like the innovation and the startups around the APIs would help further stimulate the use and development of commercial services around them.
Karthik, Joffy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Joanne. I think one other point I would like to highlight is if you're talking about industries, on a related but slightly different note, one other industry that's borrowing from telco, that takes huge inspiration from telco because of the similarity in way in which the digital services are offered, is the energy management industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to specifically give an example of Schneider Electric, is one of the large enterprise customers that we work with. They selected us because we had a huge telco focus. And basically, if you look at the nature of use cases, a telco is best positioned to kind of offer order management. It's best positioned to offer billing and rating that any digital business today would require. Right, and today, if you look at the kind of use cases that APIs are enabling for Schneider Electric, Schneider Electric is trying to expand its reach to kind of expand multiple channels of selling. So they have an extended enterprise using APIs. They're able to onboard their channel partners, electricians. They call energy auditors. They have distributors. They have panel builders. So it's like a huge economy that's kind of opened up, and it increases the value of transactions for the Schneider products. So that's something which I wanted to kind of highlight, because other industries are taking inspiration from telcos. So it's very important for telcos to kind of recognize the potential and power that they have in terms of their core BSS capability.
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. So, I mean, looking at my other discussion points here, I mean, it does seem to me that we are still largely in an experimentation phase. I guess when it comes to actually building lines of business, we're not really there yet. We are still in the early stages. Is that fair, do you think, or do you think I'm being overly harsh?
I think we're at a pivotal point. There's been a lot of exploration for quite a number of years, and much of the API focus, say in the 3 to 4 years past, has been on the internal streamlining of the business and things like that. Now that we're at a stage where the network capabilities can be exposed through APIs reasonably effectively or reasonably quickly, I think that's a game changer, and we will see the changes coming very quickly from here.
And actually, Joanne, while I have you, my last question here, a very big question: where does ecosystem development sit within an operator's business? Are we seeing any patterns yet in that discussion?
We are. I mean, we're seeing a lot of focus on manufacturing, healthcare, and energy. But I think the commonalities is more where and how the organizations are relating. We talk about at ITM Forum, we talk about operators evolving to become partners, and we are seeing early successes of that. We'll be touching on some examples here, but we see others like, when we had our recent digital transformation event in Dubai, it was clear the local operator was very much a digital partner with the government for the smart city space. So there is certainly a lot of early successes going on. But you still feel we're only touching the iceberg. There's so much opportunity here.
Yeah. And again, to be clear, we're largely thinking about IoT. Well, I guess a lot of it's IoT. A lot of the growth, I guess, is IoT. But then I guess a lot of the opportunities out there today are not necessarily IoT.
Yeah, absolutely, not necessarily IoT. Yeah.
Okay, so if everyone's happy, there's no questions. By the way, I have opened the group chat, so if you want to ask any questions while Karthik, Joanne, or Joffy are speaking, then please just use the chat. But I'm now going to hand back to Karthik just to take us into the next section. Karthik, over to you.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to walk you through how leaders are different, and I'm going to specifically talk about a case study. So you can move to the next slide, please. So I'd like to walk you through a case study from AT&T. This is a public case study. We have a YouTube video from Mike Troiano, who is the VP of IoT in AT&T. So AT&T has moved beyond the image of a mobile operator. So they play the role of a systems integrator. And the case study we are specifically talking about here is Musk, where the kind of model is AT&T takes care of the end-to-end solution. They not only provide the connectivity, but they also provide system integration to provide the IoT sensors for the containers, and they also provide the required applications that the sensors will interact with, and they make sure that these sensors and application work together in a harmonious way to make sure that Musk as a client is successful in their IoT solution. So here it could have been very easy for AT&T to only think about themselves as a mobile operator and only offer container IoT enablement as a service. But they kind of stepped up. They said, no, it's not just important to onboard partners, but it's also important to make the partners successful. Because Musk is not an expert in kind of integrating IoT devices together and putting it together in the form of an IoT solution. They would have required a systems integration partner anyway. And this is exactly where AT&T saw an opportunity and they jumped on it. And they said, like, look, it's like we provide the complete solution. We provide the connectivity, we provide the devices, we provide the sensors, and we provide the end-to-end solution. We make it work for you. So this is a kind of a classic example of how leaders are thinking in terms of maximizing the value in the digital space.
And out of interest, Karthik, is that relationship between AT&T and Maersk, is that a global relationship or is it just a North American one?
The case study that we are talking about is North America, right, which can be extended by other operators in the global context.
Okay, thank you. Shall I move on?
Yes, please. Yeah, so this is just a diagrammatic representation of AT&T like examples. And how operators can capitalize. It's actually going one step beyond. So here the previous model, we talked about internal IT, we talked about internal applications, and we also talked about the partner ecosystem. Now here we are talking about making the partners successful, which means it's not just enough if partners consume your APIs. It's very important to open up the data and applications of your partner to help them expose their own APIs. So partners can enrich the ecosystem and allow other partners to get onboarded into their ecosystem. So this creates what we call a networks effect. So a partner network grows. So the network further created by the partner grows. And here you kind of see that the value of the transaction increases exponentially when you have a huge network of partners all connected to each other in the form of a network diagram.
And I guess this is often what we talk about platform business models. It's one and the same.
Exactly, yeah. So this creates the stage for the platform business model where you have a provider network and a consumer network, all of them connected through APIs, leveraging on your core assets, and it increases the value of the transaction on your platform. Okay, you can move to the next slide, please.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's a pretty succinct section. So what we've just been talking about is around, adding value and creating, partner ecosystems. And when we talk about platform business models, we're talking about, I guess the easiest ones to understand are the likes of, Booking.com and Uber. Indeed, in the digital economy, a lot of the successes have been through platform business models where you, as you say, use network effect to drive both sides, both the production and the consumption. The discussion point I wanted to move to here, and I'm going to unmute everybody here, if people would like to join in, is when telcos look at partner ecosystems, do they have the right KPIs to measure the success of them? Because in the digital world, you often measure your success by usage, and telcos tend not to have usage as a key KPI. So, do we sense that telcos are adopting the right KPIs, or too early?
Can we try muting that particular line again?
Yeah. So while we're waiting for anybody else to respond, maybe I could just ask, Karthik, Joffrey, or Joanne to give their view about whether telcos are measuring this in the right way.
I think from our experience, we are seeing that some telcos are in the kind of right place. They have a well-defined platform strategy. They have the right set of KPIs. Some telcos require assistance from system integrators and digital transformation players to kind of help them define a kind of a platform strategy. So one of the KPIs that I would like to kind of talk about briefly without going into too much of detail is the moment you have a platform, it's very important to measure the success of the platform in terms of the quality of engagement. So quality of engagement is, are the transactions happening on the platform? Are the providers and consumers deriving value out of the transactions in the platform? Are providers able to kind of increase their reach? And is the platform providing means without which they are not able to sell their offerings? So a platform should be a means to kind of accelerate their sales. So they should be having metric to measure the before and after scenario. It's like, how does their business look without being in a platform versus being on a platform? So there are some standard metrics, and there are a lot of resources available in public as well in terms of how to kind of define a kind of an operating model for platform business. And those resources can be used as a starting point to tailor and contextualize them to your organization and build on top of it.
And do you sense, when we look at this platform business model, when you're looking to engage at the senior level of people in a telco organization, do they really get it? Because it's a completely different view, traditional telco view, in terms of how you build value into your business.
Yes.
What's your sense? I mean, my impression is that you have pockets of people who are very passionate about this, but the organization as a whole might not really be thinking around what platform could do for them.
I completely agree with you here, and our experience shows that some stakeholders are already aligned, as you rightly said, and most stakeholders are thinking in terms of a traditional telco. Because if you're thinking in terms of a platform business, you are talking about adjacent industry verticals. If you're thinking about a healthcare platform, most telcos naturally don't have the exposure to run a platform business in the healthcare domain. The obvious question they have in mind is, do we have the healthcare domain skills? Do we have the infrastructure in terms of people, process, technology to operate a platform business in the first place? Do we have the right skills in the marketing team and the product strategy team to put together a kind of an operating model for a platform business? And obviously, these are very right questions. And this is where any telco or any enterprise for that matter requires organizational change management. And it requires senior stakeholders to be onboarded and agreement to be established with the management at a board level to kind of go forward and experiment this business model. And the way to kind of be confident in venturing in a larger scale is to start with a pilot. So to kind of start small, experiment with a customer segment in a particular geography, see how it goes, apply all the lessons learned, and then scale it as the confidence builds.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I think it's an interesting point you're making here, Mark. It came up recently during our Action Week event in Lisbon. So Campbell McLean, who has worked as CIO of a number of different operators, but is currently CIO at Deutsche Telekom. He mentioned that that the primary KPIs at the board level are still operator, and generally speaking, relate to the business of today as opposed to the business of tomorrow. And I think that is an interesting concept. But I think our boards generally across the world the same, right? Are more boards very much focused on the business of today as opposed to the business of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And to what extent the business of tomorrow is prioritized. And I think as time will go on, that tipping point will arrive. I think most boards, generally speaking, are still focused on day-to-day activities and making sure that that's financially running well. But I do think that tipping point is arriving as we move out of the exploration mode and genuinely deliver new services. These exploration services, as they become operational, they become part of the KPIs of the day-to-day business. So it's a maturity thing. I wouldn't really be worried about it. I think it's a natural thing of where we are in the life cycle.
Right. Thank you, Joanne. So the second discussion here, I hope you're understanding where I've gone with that discussion, but when I look at ecosystems and platforms, I see two ways of looking at it, and these do overlap. And one way of looking at it is, if I want to expand in a new area such as IoT, I can build a platform-based business model, and the technology that I buy is already well suited to exposing those internal capabilities externally to customers. So that's a relatively straightforward approach to take in terms of deploying the right technology. Now, the other approach that I see is when you take your existing assets and capabilities, such as, for example, your billing platform, your charging platform, and you take that and you expose that to third parties. And it seems to me that the second of those is more difficult, because you're taking an item in the business which has traditionally been viewed as a cost item, where the overriding business objective is to manage the cost. You're saying, actually, we think you can provide a catalyst for growth in the business. So I guess my question to all of you is, do you recognize that distinction, or am I creating a distinction that's not really there? Karthik or Joffy, any thoughts before I throw it back to Joanne?
Yeah, so very specifically, this is something which we deal with all the time. So if you look at telcos or any large enterprises, it's not like Uber or Airbnb where the technology is greenfield. Like, all the systems have been in operation for at least a decade to begin with, right? So when you think in terms of API enabling or exposing these capabilities to the outer world, it's very important to kind of look at the fitment for purpose, look at the granularity of the capabilities, first evaluate if some components of the system are aligned to the customer journeys, are they exposable at all or not. So in those cases, you need to commission some system integration work with the backend application owners, your billing system, product vendors, to get some of the core capabilities exposed as internal APIs in the first place. And this is exactly where you need system integration. You need specific expertise to see how to get the data out of the system, how to invoke specific capabilities into the system at the right level of granularity required to support the IoT business models and the other charging use cases that the new business models require. Right. So this is an activity that needs to be looked at holistically. You need to have a very good kind of a business view of things, a customer journey centric analysis, to start from the kind of partner use case, map it down into your API candidates, do a mapping with your IT capabilities, your billing components, look at the use case and evaluate the granularity, and then take it one step at a time.
Thank you very much. Anything to add, anybody, before I move on?
Just a small bit that I would add on to the Karthik, Mark, in terms of the onset of 5G, as you rightly said, the use cases driven towards IoT is something that one can't ignore. But while that's happening, across the board within telcos, we have actually seen a move from the practice of having a full stack monolithic environment to adoption of a service oriented or a microservices oriented architecture, which has actually enabled the thinking of exposing assets much more quickly. So the problem statement has actually gone down in terms of that being seen as a huge cost item, and recently some of the shared transactions that we see on the gateway, on the API gateway, which are paving way for the platform economy, are all driven around billing, identity, authentication, account and subscription, and largely customer identity and network identity related APIs, as opposed to core technology capabilities. But I'm sure 5G will bring a lot of technology capabilities out, but I think both go hand in hand together.
Okay, that's great. So I think we'd better move on just so that we stay within our hour. So thank you for those insights. So back to you, Karthik.
Sure. So now let's look at how you progressively align and create a roadmap to become a leader. Go to the next slide, please. So we have broken this down into 3 levels of digital platform opportunity. So the first step is to look at CSP as a platform. So look at your core capabilities, what you can expose as APIs, and try to kind of build a partner ecosystem. And this is a model where you can kind of expose core telco capabilities, or you yourself can offer platform opportunities like digital healthcare, digital transportation, smart cities, and so on. The next level is CSP as a platform enabler, where you not only become a digital platform in an adjacent vertical, but you offer this as a managed service. You allow other enterprises, small and medium businesses or large enterprises, to become a platform business, where you offer your core capabilities, which means all your BSS capabilities are exposed as services, and you allow the other platform businesses to consume your capabilities and help them create a platform business. And the last step is CSP not only as a platform enabler, but also offering system integration to open up the assets of your partners to fully integrate with the mobile operators' capabilities. So this is the AT&T model, where AT&T not only offers their core capabilities as APIs, but also API enables their partners to help them integrate more fully into the digital ecosystem. Okay, so again, if you kind of look at this in terms of a step-by-step approach, the first step, I believe most of you are already doing this, to expose your core backends as APIs. So to API enable everything, you think in terms of an API first strategy. So any new initiative, you think in terms of API candidates. So this will even help you to think in terms of providing an omni-channel experience, because today everything is kind of multi-channel. So that's the step 1. Step 2 is API enablement for consumption by customers. So you think in terms of partner ecosystems. So you think in terms of use cases outside your organization. So you allow partners to kind of be onboarded, which can also be used by your internal applications. The last stage is where customers expose and consume APIs. So you provide system integration, and you think in terms of use cases that require API enablement of your partners as well, to maximize the value of the APIs that you offer. So it's a bidirectional flow of data through APIs. So partners consume and provide APIs. Yeah.
Great. Anything else you want to say, or should I move on to our discussion points, Karthik?
Yeah, we can move on to a discussion, please.
If we look back at those 3 different models, you mentioned that the last one is an example of I guess the AT&T and Maersk arrangement. Would you like to give any real examples of the first 2?
Yes, I think the first one is all the examples that we talked before as well, like the EE example is a classic example of building a partner network. The same with Telefonica. And in some telcos, they use a kind of a classic SDP model, software service delivery platform model, where the core network capabilities are exposed. I think the kind of progression for them is to look in terms of a developer portal to kind of offer this. So there are many telcos that are kind of doing this already. Jio is another classic example that started as a kind of a model 1, and it's moving towards the kind of large stage platform enabler plus system integration. So CSP as a platform enabler, I think the example that comes to my mind immediately is the Ooredoo Telecom in Qatar. That's kind of looking at a healthcare platform and a fleet management platform. They were the pioneers in this model. They started almost like 8 years back. They had this idea back then, and they have an opportunity to kind of expand this further. And the last model, the examples are obviously AT&T and Jio is currently it's all there in the kind of press. So Jio is looking at kind of automating the kind of Kirana store model. Like they are providing supply chain automation for the corner store. So Kirana is an Indian word for corner. So they are offering digitization capabilities, and they're empowering their partner network to be on the Jio network, and at the same time offer applications as well to kind of become more digital using mobile as a channel.
Great, thank you very much. So let's go back to, so when we look at those three different approaches, is it clear to you which one is most achievable, which is most realistic for telcos? Or does it vary based on, you know, what type of telco you are, the size of your market, the maturity of your enterprise business? Any thoughts on that?
I think the model 2, it's like CSP as a platform enabler is most achievable because CSP should already be doing the model 1. We don't see a reason why CSP should not be doing the model 1 already. I think if they're not doing it, it's too late. It's high time they do it because they're already seeing threats from the OTT players like Twilio, Leo, and others. And the model 2 sets the stage for model 3. So it's kind of it's very important that this be seen from a progressive perspective. So model 2 is where telcos can definitely do because they have the BSS capability. They know how order management works. They know how to charge a customer. So it's high time they look at providing these capabilities to other businesses, other SME segments, and other enterprises, so that this can be consumed as a service through a holistic enablement model.
And we've been talking a lot about vertical markets, particularly in relation to 5G. And I guess the choice that you have as a telco, if you want to address a vertical market, is you either build end-to-end solutions, or you build a platform business model. And I guess we're going to see a combination of the two.
Yeah, it's a combination of the two. I think healthcare is a very, very tangible market, and it's a kind of a high potential market. A lot of literature in terms of market research that's published, and it's public as well. I think the other area, and again this depends on the geography, is smart cities. I think government organizations, specifically in the Middle East, are very keen in providing smart city capabilities, and telcos are best positioned to offer this as a kind of a packaged offering.
Yeah.
We're already seeing many pilots being conducted in many other markets in terms of in partnership with the government agencies to kind of offer end-to-end smart city solutions.
Thank you. And do telcos have the right skills? I mean, Joanne, I know that that you speak with a lot of telcos, and do you sense they have the right skills?
It's interesting because most of the telcos, the way they start out is they do a capability evaluation of what they have today versus what they need in order to deliver new types of services. So, for example, Orange, not that long ago, launched its banking capabilities, right? And before they decided to, deliver that type of service, they executed a capability evaluation of their existing technologies and processes and skills, and then evaluated what new types of services could leverage those same capabilities, and identified there was very little gap between the core capabilities of telco and the core capabilities of banking, even down to minute things like real-time stamping of transactions and things like that. And so in a lot of cases, yes, they have the technological skills, but the operational skills to run a banking service would be different, and they can partner or they can hire to deliver these, and they know this. But once they have something like a capability evaluation, they can very easily identify what are the gaps and close them down very quickly. And that's the power of a capability evaluation used in this type of way.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. So I'm aware of the time, so I did want to move to the last slide, which is actually, thank you those of you who sent in questions. They are much appreciated. And so my colleague Rachel sent you 3 sets of questions, and what I've done is I've summarized some of the answers that you gave in this document. So maybe if we take that first one, what do you see as ROI from your API integration investments thus far? I think the point that many of you come back to me with is it's still very early for this. But then some of you have actually started talking about customer satisfaction, for example. Any thoughts from Karthik and Jofi in terms of your customers and your prospects? What sort of ROI they're looking at?
I mean, the ROI that customers are looking is revenue opportunities through the partner channels. So they are really looking at the API as a product, API as a business offering, and this is something which we have been actively working with our clients to conduct workshops with the business teams to kind of let their creativity flow and think in terms of business models on top of their core capabilities. I think help them identify the value proposition so that they come up with business models and we assist them in taking it to realization through the required foundation steps. So it's, we believe it's moving on from experimentation stage to a pilot stage and it's kind of getting real. So we're seeing a lot of traction, we're seeing a lot of interest from telcos to kind of take this forward in full speed.
Great. And the second one, maybe I actually could turn to Joanne for the second one. So, in terms of challenges, I mean, I know that some of the work you're doing with the forum is helping them to overcome some of the challenges. The people that you speak to, do they see the challenges similarly, or are there a whole range of different challenges?
Very much a whole range of different challenges, to be honest. What I do see, though, however, is a degree of interest in federating for telcos to come together to help deliver different types of services in different regions so that they can monetize their capabilities and their APIs more effectively across a larger geographical stack. But in general, the monetization is through the services and to the operators. Just holistically as an industry, we need to raise the profile as being able to deliver these different types of services. So I think there's a whole image shift that needs to happen so people get familiar and become used to telco offering different types of services as well as the technological and the process parts.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. And the last question was, what API-driven digital ecosystems do you plan to launch in the near future? So again, we have a wide range of replies here, all the way through from the sort of the IoT, the forward-looking 5G stuff, I guess, and then some of the more conventional services. So maybe I'll throw this one back to Karthik and Jofi. So again, looking across your broad spectrum of customers and prospects, do you see any particular trends emerging?
I think smart cities and healthcare, as I'd already indicated, are the top two use cases, top two opportunities that telcos are strongly considering.
And when you say healthcare, what specific services within healthcare?
It's all IoT-centered services. This is in partnership with insurance firms and in partnership with the smart health devices to offer a kind of a comprehensive end-to-end digital healthcare solution. So the statistics says that customers are willing to share their data in exchange for offers and discounts. So this kind of creates a lot of value-added opportunities in a partnership with insurance providers, banks, and hospitals to make the kind of data kind of exchange happen more seamlessly across different partners.
Okay, great. So I think we've actually just gone past the hour, so that's flown by. So thank you very much indeed to Karthik, Jofi, and Joanne for your time and contribution, much appreciated. And thank you to everybody else for listening. And we certainly hope you found it useful. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.